Okay, good morning, everyone. So welcome to Business Intelligence with Data Mining. My name is Chitu Okoli, and I'm the professor for this course. I'll give more of an introduction of myself shortly, but I want to begin by taking the roster. And as you probably know, this semester Schema started a new approach to taking the roster with EduSign. And I'm experimenting with the different approaches for different courses. So I have some courses on AI and business contexts for PagerDuty students with groups of 200 up to almost 500 students. And for that, I show the QR code. But this is a smaller class, and I'd like to actually call your names because that helps me to get to know you a little bit. So I might experiment a little bit, but what I'm thinking of what I'll do is that in the first session, before the break, I will call your names, and then probably the second half after the break, I'll use a QR code. I'll see how it goes. Okay. So I believe, I haven't done this part yet, but I believe that when I call your name, I send you an email link, and then you will need to go on your email and sign it. Some teachers do that already? Okay, all right. Madi Amtalsi. Vincent Crespin. Jason Gridlin. Hugo Druva. Isaiah Ebong. Idrissa Issa. Okay, hold on. Adrien Joly. Marwan Kiate. Okay, I'm sorry, the system is a little bit slow. Okay, you know what? I think instead of send them one by one, I'll check the names and then I'll send them as a group. Marwan Kiate? Sorry, okay. Shiwi Li. Louis Liard. Jeffrey Lima.
Yes.
Louis Maes.
Yes.
How do you pronounce your last name? Maes, okay. Shiyu Mao. Ahmed Mohammed.
Yes, Rumuz is my first name.
I'm sorry?
My first name is Rumuz.
Oh, Rumuz. I'm sorry. Rumuz Mohammed Ahmed. Okay, Rumuz, sorry. Alexia Morel. Mohamed Mrabitu. Ayush Padur. Arthur Savary. Wissam Skayer. Yan Shao. Brahim Sidamed. Zinaida Tevzadeh. Sebastien Toscano. Okay, let me send those emails so far. Okay, Mahdi Amtalsi.
Yes.
Jason Cridland. Isaiah Ebong. Shiwi Li. I'm sorry? Shiwi Li. Okay. Shiyu Mao. Wissem Skyer. Yan Shao. Zinaida Tevzadze. Okay, is there anyone present whose name I did not call? Okay. Then if I called your name but you did not receive the email, then talk to me during the break, okay? Okay, so again, my name is Chitu Okoli. I'm a professor of digitalization here at Schema Business School based in Paris. And today's initial session, I'll first of all introduce myself a little bit. Okay. Pointer does not work on the screen, okay. I'll introduce myself a little bit in 2 stages. Then I'll spend some time giving you an overview of the course. In fact, one thing I'll say right away, even before getting started, is I know it's very unusual to have assignments for a course before the first day of class. So I'll explain that a little bit and how that fits in to this course. But I'll then give an introduction of business intelligence with data mining, what this is and how this fits in the context of artificial intelligence. I'll briefly talk about big data from the perspective of managers, and then we'll spend a bit of time on a graded exercise. As I said, there will be an exercise using AI Studio right in today's session. Okay, before getting into conscientious commerce, I was born in Nigeria, a West African country. I grew up in Nigeria and Canada. I kind of went back and forth as a child. Then I did my studies in the United States. I studied computer science at Louisiana State University in Baton Rouge, Louisiana, and after getting my bachelor's degree in computer science, I worked for a couple of years in Chicago as a computer systems analyst. And I realized then, I really love coding. I love computer science. But I realized after a couple of years of working that most problems that organizations face are not really the direct computer science problems. It's not about getting the program to run as fast or as efficiently as possible. There's larger problems at stake that organizations are trying to solve using computers. So I went back and got a PhD in business administration, also at Louisiana State University, and specialization in information systems, which is how people and organizations use computer technology to solve their problems. Then after that, I moved to Montreal, and I was a professor at Concordia University in Montreal for about 13 years. And then in 2017, I moved to France, and I joined Schema Business School here in Paris, where I've been since. And interestingly, I was more in the social aspects of computing when I was in Canada. But since coming to Schema, I've shifted more and more so that now I'm pretty much fully in artificial intelligence as a focus. One reason is it let me return back to my first love, so now I do a lot more coding than I used to. But some of my courses are more technical, but some are purely managerial, like how to use AI in an effective way. And this is a special course because this is really in between the two. It's technical on one side, but light technical. You've already discovered AI Studio, so it's a very light technical approach. And one reason I like it is that it lets me focus on the business applications of the machine learning that you're doing, and that's really the focus of this course. Before getting into the details of the course, another thing about myself I'd like to present is what I call conscientious commerce. And this is my view of commerce or business. Before I continue, is my voice loud enough, especially for those in the corners? You can hear me clearly? Okay, good. So to explain conscientious commerce, it's easiest to contrast it with what you could call, or what I call, pure money commerce. And this is a classic view that I'm sure we've all heard, that business is essentially about buy low, sell high. But what people don't say, is kind of implied, is leave them dry. And the idea behind this mentality often is that when you do business, you go to your resource providers and you try to squeeze them to get your resources, your goods or services, or you're paying your employees at the lowest possible cost that you can get away with. And then you might or might not do some transformation of what you got, but eventually the products and services, you then sell them at the highest possible price that the market can bear. And then the difference between your sales price and your resource costs is your profit. And that's kind of a very classic view of commerce. Well, conscientious commerce takes a very different perspective of what commerce or business is about. It's all about creating value for people. So this is very similar to what sometimes might be called value commerce. And the idea is that every transaction, every interaction with people has to be a good deal for them. So when you're acquiring your resources, you give the people selling you the products or your employees that you're paying a fair price for what they're giving you. And then you spend time and energy and resources to transform your products, to transform your resources into valuable goods and services. So that when you then present them to your customers, you're providing something to them that is of such high value that for them, the price that you're charging, of course you have to charge a price that covers your resource costs. I mean, you have to be financially sustainable, otherwise you can't create value for everyone. But you're giving them such high value compared to what you're charging that they feel they're getting a really good deal from you. So you just have the sense that anyone you're dealing with along the way is getting a good deal all along the way. And of course, in business, people will take advantage of you sometimes, try to cheat you. Okay, that's life, you don't deal with them again. But on your side, you have the sense that you will never cheat anyone. No one would ever have the perception that you've cheated them. Everyone that you interact with has a sense they're getting a good deal with you. And so fundamentally, it's about taking care of our conscience. So when I say the conscience, there's many philosophical and religious views of what the conscience is, but I'm making it very simple. The conscience is that little voice that we hear deep inside us, that when we're doing something that we should not be doing, it tells us, you know what, that's really not the right way to do things. Or sometimes we're doing things that we should do, it says that, you know, you ought to do this. And so the point is, we need to listen to that voice. And I want to stress that we need to take care of our own conscience. So you might have a boss who has very low standards and tries to impose things on you that you don't feel good about. Well, we should never let people impose their lack of conscience on us. We need to take care of our conscience. And similarly, we should never impose our conscience on others. Just as we respect our conscience, we need to respect other people's consciences. So we need to take care of our conscience. So some specific aspects of this. The first principle in the context of commerce is realizing that people are more valuable than money. We should treat people the same way we would like them to treat us if we were in their shoes. Now, you're all students. I mean, you've been students for several years, but you're here at business school and an engineering school in a joint program. And 3 to 5 years from now, you're going to be managers. You're going to have some responsibility. You'll have some people under you. And I like to talk to my students as managers in training. And I'd like you to have the mindset of a manager and start thinking in that way. And you'll see that throughout my course. But one important aspect is considering what kind of manager you want to become. Because, of course, we want to perform and do well, but especially from a managerial perspective, the greatest manager and the greatest person in general is not necessarily the person who excels themselves and shines the most themselves, but is the one who helps others to shine the most. The greatest person is the one that helps others the most. In context of commerce, we need to deeply realize that the love of money is a root of all evils. If you just think of any news story or even personal experience where business or commerce has a bad rap, it all comes down to the love of money. See, helping people is truly valuable. And commerce, for creating value, this is to help people. Money is just a tool for accounting. It's a tool for keeping track of resources, keeping track of sustainability, financial sustainability, and so on. But the problem is that very often we start, instead of looking at the goods and services and the people we're trying to provide them for, we start to count value in terms of euros, and we start to think that the euro number is actually the value. And then we lose sight of the people we're trying to create value for, and then money becomes a goal unto itself. So again, this is about taking care of our conscience. Now, another aspect is when we talk about people being more valuable than money, well, which people are we talking about? In the context of business, there's two main categories of people that we encounter. One are our fellow employees, and the other are customers. And so a key principle of conscientious commerce is clearly realizing that employees are more valuable than customers. And this is because our fellow employees, whether our colleagues or managers or the employees under us, these are the people we interact with day by day. The customers come and go, and the customers are usually a means to an end, a means to sales, a means to profit, but our employees are the people that we actually interact with the most. And this is not just an idealistic view of business, because in fact, managers who take care of their employees make them happy, and happy employees put love into the products and services, and products and services created with love make the customers happy and want to buy the products. So this is not a matter of employees versus customers, but it's a decided strategy of taking care of employees and customers through the means of prioritizing the employees. So organizational profitability, I mean, the classic view of the firm is that the goal of the firm is to maximize the profit of the shareholders. But a conscientious commerce perspective considers that the reason the organization needs to be profitable is to give employees a good livelihood. It's so that we can pay them a fair salary that rewards their valuable work and that lets them be able to take care of themselves and their families, and also so that we can give them a good working environment where they are happy to go to work each day and they have meaningful work. And this is what the organizational profitability should be invested in primarily, to sustain this kind of organizational atmosphere. So, as I said, I've lived most of my life in Canada and the United States. And in these parts of the world, you often hear the mantras, the customer is king, the customer is number one. And I can tell you that these perspectives are driven by the love of money. The love of money permeates those cultures, and of course they are very financially prosperous. But the work life and the work atmosphere reflects that. And I have to say that one of the refreshing points of coming to France is that I think there's a much more balanced perspective of human value vis-a-vis employees and customers. But in any case, this is a matter of taking care of our conscience. Now, happily, I'm not the only one who takes this perspective. Here's a few links if you're interested in learning more about these ways of seeing commerce. The first is a link to a special issue of Harvard Business Review called Be Happy, Be Audacious. And this issue looks at some companies that really prioritize employee welfare. It looks at how they maintain organizational profitability and maintain such an environment. Then here is a link from Forbes, which is a major business magazine. 5 reasons employees are more important than customers. And this is a link from Monster, which is a major job search site in the United States. Why should I value my employees before my customers? Okay. So I just want to lay this out, and it's not something I will explicitly teach in the rest of the course, but it underlies the examples that I bring about, the cases that we study, and the perspectives that we have. Are there any questions or comments before going on? Okay, throughout my sessions, I look at my phone a lot because I keep my time. I use it to keep track of my time to see how I'm going along. Okay, so now I come to a general overview of the course. So the course schedule has, we have 8 sessions, and the sessions are in bold. Today's session is a general introduction to business intelligence with data mining, and I'll define these terms, especially in the context of artificial intelligence. Then we will have 2 sessions on data preparation. First on cleansing data, because real life data is messy, and then data visualization. Then we'll have 3 sessions on the core data mining techniques, classification, regression, and cluster analysis. And then we'll end with 2 advanced sessions on advanced topics, evaluating classification and time series analysis. Now, I teach courses like this in many different programs. And in some programs, I teach it to business students. I'm sorry. Could the 2 of you please stop your conversation? It's very distracting. And you 2 back there, please. Thank you. So I teach courses like this in many programs, and some of them are business programs with students who have absolutely no technical background. And here, it's kind of the main topics, except for the more advanced ones. But I teach it differently because you've already had at least, even those who are relatively new here, have had at least 2 months of intense courses in Python and R. And I really love teaching here because I can go a lot further. You'll see that this course is not mathematical at all. I do not get into the mathematical details of how the algorithms work, but I will explain the high-level view of what the algorithms are doing. And actually that's easier for me because I'm not a mathematician. I I freely confess, I don't understand a lot of the deep mathematical details, but to understand conceptually what's going on, but even more, what I spend the vast majority of time in this course is mapping the machine learning techniques to the organizational problems that are trying to be solved. And that's really the focus of this course. And in fact, that is why I use AI Studio. Because as you've already seen, it's a very easy to use platform. And this is why I require you to actually have an assignment before the first day of class so that you can basically learn to use it, so that as from today we're going to jump in and start actually applying it for problems without having to go through a tutorial that looking at the scores, I mean, the vast majority of you scored 8 or 9 or 10 out of 10. So you can see that I think it's much easier to get that out of the way, and then today we can start applying. So let me introduce you to the key resource in the course. First of all, on K2. So you might or might not have been on K2 this morning, but I've opened up a few sections of the course. You've already seen probably the general course structure. I'm going to go over the schedule and deadlines and the assessments. And in addition to the tutorial, now we have some support materials and information about the lectures. So I'm going to go over all that so that you have you know what the course is covering. But one of the basic principles of pretty much all my courses is no brain, no gain. The gain that you will get from this course is you'll learn business intelligence, which is an intelligent, meaningful way of analyzing data to make intelligent business decisions. And you'll learn data mining or machine learning, which is more of a technical perspective, but from a managerial perspective. You learn a managerial way of looking at these techniques. But to get this gain in just about 2 weeks, you have to really apply your brain. So there's a lot of work in this course. The class sessions are very busy, but there's lots of homework. You've already started the homework. There's homework almost every day based on the assignments. You're going to have readings. You already have some data camp courses that are tied just to this course, which I'm going to talk about. However, I'll say the assignments are quite easy. Okay, like the RapidMiner tutorial, but it's just that there's a lot of them. So this is a master's level course. And for a master's level course, I can't speak for other teachers, but at least my perspective is that for each hour in class, you should expect to spend about 2 to 3 hours outside of class working to complete your learning. So for this course, that translates. So this course is a 24-hour face-to-face course. It's not quite up to that full schedule, but you can reasonably expect to spend between 25 to 30 hours outside of class for each, so this involves readings. There's going to be quite a lot of readings to do. Online assignments, including on RapidMiner, AI Studio. See, it's been called RapidMiner for 15 to 20 years. They just a couple years ago they were bought by Altair. Just this year they changed the name. They're trying to remove the RapidMiner name, so I'll call it RapidMiner again. And they still have a RapidMiner structure. So okay, I think they're working out the naming, but I'll call it RapidMiner or AI Studio back and forth throughout the course. And this time also includes the time you'll need to spend to study for the final exam. There will be quite a substantial final exam. You'll need to study for it, so that's included in the time estimate. So for the specific assessments and the grading structure, okay, let me make this bigger so you can see it. So this is in K2 under the course information. Okay, I'll come back later to the schedule and the deadlines. But the main assessments, there's continuous evaluation. As I said, there's a lot of homework, so that is 50% of the course grade. The AI Studio tutorial that you completed yesterday is worth 2.5% of your course grade. And there's, after every session, each of the 8 sessions, there will be a homework exercise based on the session. And that each of them will be worth 3% of your grade. Now, for these, and they will be due typically the night of the class, sometimes maybe the day after, because we have a lot of sessions, but they usually don't take more than 30 minutes each, okay? So that should not be too intensive. But they're worth 3% of your grade each. There will be no late submissions accepted, and that's for the simple reason, because if the deadline is tonight, once the deadline passes, the answers are shown. You get immediate feedback on your scores, you see the answers, you can review. And when I do that, then you can't have late submissions, because then you'll see the answers. Okay, so that's a simple reason why late submissions are not accepted for those assignments. And so like the Rapid Minor tutorial, if you go back to it, you'll see your grade right away. Okay, you can see that on K2 immediately. The perusal social readings, the reading assignments, there's 3 main reading assignments, worth 16% of your grade in total, and data camp courses. So I'm sure Francis Walensky explained it at the beginning of the semester, that most of your data camp assignments are for the course Computer Programming Support, fall, but there are 3 assignments that are for my course. Did he explain that?
Yeah.
Okay, very good. So you just follow them, they're on your data camp schedule, but they count for this course. And as you've already seen, these are no-code courses. So it's a little bit of a break from Python and R, because they focus on managerial business thinking and concepts of the AI that you're using. So those are worth 3% of your grade each. Now those, if you, there are late submissions. There's partial credit for if you miss the deadlines for the readings or the data camp assignments. Then the final exam will be worth 50% of your course grade. I'll talk, so this is the big picture. I'll talk in detail of these components shortly. Okay. Now first I have to explain perusal. I'm just curious, has anyone here used perusal before in any course? Okay. Because I know it's used in some L3 courses at Schema, but I don't know if any of you encountered that. So why do we use perusal for ratings? Well, fundamentally, students perform better when they read before class. And all of this is backed by research. I have the citations here at the end of the slides. I give the references. Basically, it's one thing to just come to class and then the teacher starts talking, but research has shown, and probably your experience shows, that if there's a reading assignment and the teacher asks you to read it before class and you actually do read it, you get more from that class session than when you don't do the reading assignment. I mean, you have many years of experience as students, and you can probably say that that's your experience. However, a lot of times the teacher says, read this before class, and maybe you have the intention to, but you get busy and eventually don't. Well, research shows that when the teacher assigns a grade, usually maybe associated to a quiz or something, that means you have to have read before class, then students are far more likely to do the reading that is supposed to help them. And again, you can probably say from your experience that, yeah, if a teacher just said, hey, read this before class, you often didn't do it. But if they said there's going to be a quiz on it, then you probably did it. But giving a quiz is not the only way to assure that students actually read. There's research based on, specifically on perusal, which is active social required reading. It's more effective for understanding and remembering than non-required reading. Not necessarily than quizzes, but then when an assignment is just given without a requirement. Okay. So because I care about your learning, I want you to get the maximum learning from this course, I use perusal. So what is perusal? It is a social reading platform. It is designed based on expert educators from Harvard University and Columbia University in the US, who, I mean, for many years have been researching how students learn effectively. Sorry. Okay, thank you. And usually when reading assignments are given, each student on their own reads. But Perusal is an online platform where you're still reading on your own, but then you write comments on your reading that other students see. You ask questions, students can answer these questions, and it becomes an asynchronous social conversation. Asynchronous means that you don't have to be online at the same time. Each person reads at their time, but through the comments, you maintain a conversation centered on what you're reading. So the key are the annotations or comments, and an effective annotation or comment deeply engages points in the readings, stimulates discussion, offers informative questions or comments, and helps other students by addressing their questions or confusions. Now, a key part of it is that your comments or annotations are graded. They are graded by the AI on the platform. And so for each assignment, each reading assignment, you're given a grade out of 3 or more. But the base grade is out of 3. And 2 out of 3 is the standard grade. It means that you've given a thoughtful and thorough reading of the entire assignment. Then 3 out of 3 means an exceptionally thoughtful and thorough reading of the entire assignment. 1 out of 3 is a superficial reading of the entire assignment, or a thoughtful reading but of only part of the assignment. And a 0 is for a superficial reading of only part of the assignment. It's graded by AI, but I configure the AI, and I monitor it, and I take full responsibility for it. I'm not sure what you've covered in other courses, but as students in AIBT, you have to understand that AI does not make decisions. It cannot make decisions. There's always a person behind it. And even if the person said, oh, the AI made a decision, no, it's a person who decided to program the AI or who decided to enable it who is ultimately responsible for making the decision. So I take full responsibility for the grades as I configure them. So I have a video here. There's also a link in K2. This is completely optional. But because there's a lot of readings, it just gives some of my experience on how to effectively read course assignments. And yeah, you've been students for almost all your life, and you feel, yes, that you know how to read course assignments. But just for example, if the way you read a course assignment is you start from the first page and you read all the way to the end, that is not the most effective way to read. it's distracting, you lose attention, and you don't remember that much that way. So this just gives some principles of how to do a quick scan of the structure, a detailed scan of the structure actually, and then going back so that it doesn't take that much more time, but you actually understand what you're reading and you remember it better, even though you do one reading through that. Okay, so it's optional, just help you. So some principles in perusal that I have to state concerning copying, referencing, and the use of generative AI. So no plagiarism. You are encouraged to use other sources and bring in other sources in your readings, in your comments. However, you absolutely must cite any other source that you use. Actually, a follow-up course to this course, I'll be teaching you research methods in AIBT, and I'm going to talk a lot more on citations and plagiarism, but it begins here, and it applies to all courses. For perusal, even if you paraphrase, that is, you find a source and you rewrite it in your own words, you must cite the source. So it's fine to use other sources, but you must cite it. And for perusal citation, just a web link is enough. You don't need a formal APA citation. If you do not cite the source, that is plagiarism. If you use generative AI, such as ChatGPT, Copilot, Gemini, whatever, to help you in crafting a response, you must mention that you did that. So you are allowed to use generative AI to help you craft your comments, but you must say so. So for example, when you use AI tools to create content for your schoolwork, it's important to be completely open and honest about it and take complete responsibility for what you turn in. I created this comment with the use of ChatGPT, and I just have a little comment here, comment generated with help from ChatGPT. So not in all your writing you have to say that everywhere, but in perusal you must say that, okay? Because if you use generative AI without a note like that and it's detected, you will be penalized. So I'll mention it in the next screen. If you copy and paste something, then you absolutely must put the copy-pasted passage in quotation marks. So for example, a couple slides back, I copy and pasted this quotation about effective annotations, and I included the link where I got it from. This is perfectly fine. You just have to be transparent about it. Now that said, if your comments are just copy and paste with a citation or just generative AI, what you mentioned, that's not enough to give you credit for your grade. You should add your own intelligent comments on why that quotation is relevant to the passage or why the generative AI summarize, how it pertains. So just add a sentence or two contextualizing it, and then that can be a very valuable comment that helps other students to enter into the reading. Now, I use perusal in almost all my classes, and unfortunately, especially with the launch of ChatGPT, the ways of cheating using perusal have really multiplied. So I need to spend a moment talking about this. So some common ways that students cheat with perusal. One, they copy text from outside sources without citing them, what I talked about on the last slide. Sometimes they copy other students' perusal comments, put them as their own, maybe with a few changes. Sometimes they use generative AI to create comments without acknowledging it. So the ways that such cheating is detected, the perusal platform automatically catches many of these issues and sends me an alert, and I investigate every alert I get. Very often, your fellow students see something, say, oh, that's written by ChatGPT, or this student just rephrased what I wrote, and they report it directly to me. Again, I investigate every alert. And in addition, I've been using perusal for many years, and I have some other private techniques of verifying when cheating has occurred. So the penalties for cheating on perusal, the first time that you do it, you get a 0 on that perusal assignment. Okay, And considering that perusal assignments are 6 to 4% of the course grade, that is quite substantial. A second time, you get 0 on all the perusal assignments, which is about, what is that? That's, I think, 16% of the course grade. It could be difficult to pass a course if that happens. And the third time will be an official academic discipline submission. If, however, you feel that after I've investigated a case and I penalized for cheating, that you feel that that is unfair, that you actually didn't cheat, then you always have the right to ask for a full formal academic discipline submission, and then other professors will look at the evidence and then make a formal decision. You always have the right to do that. Okay, so instructions to get started on perusal. Let's go back to K2. So on K2, there's a few main tabs. The course information has general information about the course. Altair RapidMiner, AI Studio tutorial, you've already seen. That's where the AI Studio tutorial is. Then an important tab is support, perusal, and data camp. So there, one of the subsections is perusal. And on perusal, the first thing there is how to connect, and there you click on the following link. Okay. So you can go ahead and do that right now to make sure that you have no problem connecting. So, if you click on it, it will take you to the course site for perusal, and this is the way to get in. Yeah, none of you have ever used it before, because if you've used it before, there's a little bit of another step. But okay, so it should take you right here. And you have here, there are 3 assignments, and they have the deadlines posted here. The first deadline is this Friday evening. So when you click on it, this is intro. So there's multiple sections of each reading because there are articles from many different sources. But the general topics of these first 3 are general introduction to business intelligence, data cleansing, data visualization. So my view is a little bit different from yours. But if you open it, you will see the readings, but they have multiple parts. So here, this actually tells you there's 9 parts. Some parts are very short. Some parts are just 1 page long. But these first 2 are a bit longer. So don't wait. Get started. You can go back as many times as possible. So you can read for 15-minute sections, a page or 2 here, and then come back later. And then make sure to click the next part and make sure you go through all the parts of the reading for the assignments. So for each of the assignments, the deadlines are posted there so that you can see them clearly. Now, on K2, you probably have a lot more questions, like how exactly does it work? Here's a general overview of perusal. Here's information about if you miss the deadline, you have 24 hours for partial credit to complete it. Then you might want to get started with this short video, which is just a quick demo on how to comment, how to use the interface. And there's a video about tips on reading academic assignments. Then there's a lot of information here on how exactly does the scoring work. So here's some documents provided by Perusal that explain in more detail how the scoring works. And there's some examples of student comments so they can see what are useful comments, not so useful comments, and relative grades they might get. Then I have other comments here, just general tips. How to see your scores on perusal. Your scores will be shown after each assignment, but then how to see your scores and maybe some things, some tips on getting a better grade. Then a few frequently asked questions as well. Okay. Any questions about perusal?
Why do we have to answer the questions?
When you go to perusal, so just watch the short video here, because there's no questions. You read and you comment on what you read. Okay, so just watch this short video. We'll explain it a little bit more practically. Okay. Need to move a bit faster. Okay, so next for data camp. So you already are very familiar with data camp. In your data camp profile, your list of assignments, the 3 assignments during this course are data science for business, understanding data visualization, machine learning for business. Okay, so just complete them on data camp. There are no code courses. I don't think I need to say much more since you're familiar with data camp by now.
Do we have to submit it, the PDF of completions?
Oh, that's a good point. Okay, yeah, because for the other class, you are required to submit the PDFs. Okay. You do not need to submit your PDFs in this case. I have direct access on DataCamp to what you've completed. I see when you've completed on the date. So as long as you complete it on time or late, I see it and I will give credit for that. Okay, you do not need to submit them. Okay. Yes.
So when is the next data camp due?
I'm sorry, I don't. Oh, okay. Yes, I do have that. Hold on, please. So in K2, under the course information, there is a section course schedule and deadlines. So here all the assignment deadlines are listed. So the next data camp assignment is due this Friday, same as the perusal readings. Okay. But I think the data camp assignments are probably a little bit faster for this course than they are for your typical ones. Yeah, they take less time. Okay. Okay, so all the deadlines are here, and please note that all deadlines are 11:59 p.m. Okay, all deadlines for the course for both data camp and perusal, and also the rapid minor assignments. The final exam of this course, there will be a final exam. It will be held in mid-December. It will be based on the lectures and on rapid minor exercises. There will be nothing on the final exam from your perusal readings. There will be nothing on the final exam from your data camp courses. Okay, because those, you read them, you do those, they're graded on their own. There's a lot of content in the course, and that's what the final exam will be based on. On the last day of class, I will give you a detailed study guide, and I will also provide you a practice exam, okay, so that you know exactly how to prepare. So that'll be on the last day of class. Okay, last point for the general course overview is introducing you to BIDM. So this is a chatbot trained for this course, and I've been teaching this course and developing it for over several years, and this, I think, was developed around 3 years ago and refined. So this was before generative AI blew open the scene. So lower your expectations in the conversational ability of this bot. However, it is trained on the contents of this course and is quite effective for what it's trained on. So BIDM bot lives in K2. So in the support, perusal, and data camp tab, actually the first page there is BIDM bot support chatbot. Okay. And you just need to scroll down. It's not so obvious, but here, type your message, and you can try it right now. You can just start by saying hello, and it takes a little bit of time to start up sometimes. Okay, here, so my name is BIDM bot. How can I help you today? So this is your first point of contact if you're having some trouble with the RapidMiner exercise. Even we're going to be doing exercises during class. If you run into trouble during class, go to BIDM bot right away. Okay, so for example, so you can ask questions in natural language and try to use as many keywords as possible. So for example, if you have an error message in AI Studio or in one of the assignments, error messages, just type the exact error message. So here's one that you might encounter. Non-nominal attribute, the example set contains non-nominal attribute date, which is not allowed. Okay, am I very cryptic? You don't say why are you getting that error? Okay, so then just copy and paste or type, if it doesn't let you copy, the error message directly in there. Okay, do you clarify? Did you mean? Okay, and so this error message shows up with FP growth operator, RapidMiner, and then says, okay, if you receive this error, then maybe you're using the wrong data sets. Okay, so based on my experience with the course, there's a lot of things that you might encounter. So this is actually, while we're in class, do it, or after, when doing the homework assignment after class, use this, and it can answer a lot of your questions. Actually, if it is not able to answer your question, you can say, okay, I need human help after trying a few times, and sorry, okay, here I'll just say no. Try the new things. You rather send a message to a human, contact a human, and it gives you some instructions. And so right here, you can take a screenshot and send a link to the screenshot, tells you how to do that, and then you follow the instructions, and when you submit it through BIDM bot, it will send me an email directly, and then I will answer very quickly. Okay, and I like you to send it here because then I know, okay, there's a problem that BIDM bot was not able to take care of, and then I can train it to be able to answer that question next time. But I'll answer you directly. Okay, so that's a tool that I hope should be useful. Okay, it's 9 o'clock. How about let's take an early break, because but before I do that, any questions? I finished the course overview. The next thing here is getting to the actual content of the course. Are there any questions about the nature of the course, structure of the course? Okay. Now let's take a break. It's 9 o'clock. Let's go until 9:15. Okay.
So we have an interview at 11. Okay. I can. Thank you so much.
So you will come in and leave early, or?
Normally we finish at 11 and 15.
So you leave early.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, let's start up again. So as I mentioned in the first session, I'll call roll to kind of get to know your names a little bit. But in the second session, I'll just put up the QR code. Okay. I'll leave it there for a while until it kind of gets annoying on the screen. So now getting into the content of the course. I'll begin by defining some key terms, especially business intelligence and data mining. So business intelligence, it's really hard to give a precise definition because it's a moving target, something that keeps evolving. But in general, I think of business intelligence as a comprehensive, cohesive, integrated set of tools and processes that they're centered around data, capturing, collecting, analyzing data. And their purpose of all these tools and processes called business intelligence is to generate and present information to support business decision making. In fact, the key there is data to support decision making, because managers make decisions based on many things. A very important part of being a manager is building experience. An important part is also having some intuition. But business intelligence is about making decisions based on data. It's effectively understanding data to make effective decisions. Now, data mining is a very old term, and that too has evolved over 20 or 30 years. Here's a relatively old definition, but that still captures the essence of it. Data mining is a process of exploration and analysis by automatic or semi-automatic means of large quantities of data in order to discover meaningful patterns and rules. To better understand these, especially in the context of artificial intelligence, here's a Venn diagram, or Euler diagram more specifically, that kind of lays out a lot of terms, especially putting these in the context of artificial intelligence. And I'll spend some time laying this out so that you understand the essence of this course, but also how it fits in your program. So I like to think of AI and business intelligence as falling along a spectrum, where AI is more along the computer science end of the spectrum, and business intelligence is more along the lines of organizational management. Throughout the course, I'm going to use business and organizations interchangeably, because although we often say business, the principles you're learning here apply not only to commercial organizations, they apply to any organization where data analysis is important, including education, healthcare, government, nonprofits, and so on. But let's begin with the computer science, artificial intelligence end. Even though you're AIBT students, you've already had a lot of courses on AI, I think it's valuable to hear different professors' definitions and perspectives on AI, because there's many aspects of it, different perspectives, and it gives you a fuller view. So to me, AI is essentially the study and development of intelligent agents. And by agents, I mean software agents so software that acts intelligent. And what exactly is intelligence? That too is a moving target, because AI has been around since the 1960s, and what people thought of as intelligence in a computer in the 1970s is stuff we would laugh at today in 2024. What we call AI has a lot to do with the current state of things and our expectations, but this is a general goal. Now, most of what we encounter as AI, especially in your program, is machine learning. But I'd like to first talk about some aspects of AI that are not machine learning. so that you have a broader view of it. Two important aspects are first physical sensing, such as vision, sounds, and so on. And to understand this, a good place to start is to think of robots. So a robot is a mechanical device that interacts with the world autonomously or semi-autonomously. And robots capture things like with cameras, heat sensors. So a robot has two main subsystems. The system that has mechanical parts that interact with the world is under the field of mechatronics. So that's a very specific area of mechanical engineering. So the mechanical parts and the movement of the robot, and even capturing the data, the pictures, the heat, and the things around it. But once it has captured those images, what does it do? How does it know whether it should go towards that object or go away from it? This is where artificial intelligence comes in. So this is like the brains of the robot. It interprets these images or this data it has seen, and then kind of determines what action should be taken. So the sensing part, so that's an important part of artificial intelligence, making sense of what the data has been gathered from the environment. But then once the data is gathered, how is it stored in a way that can be reasoned? So like, how does the robot know that it needs to take 2 steps forward towards that object, but then move right and then go forward to avoid it? How does it know, how is that information stored, and what logical steps need to be taken? That is the knowledge representation and reasoning aspect of AI. So that's a critical aspect. Without that, AI cannot reason. So these are two major aspects. And this is not in the size of the importance of these domains. I'm just putting things together. So these are huge aspects of AI. But my main point is that these are not machine learning. Okay? And I don't think there's any courses in your program that treat these aspects. But so just so that you know, we're just covering part of AI. But machine learning is a huge part. And machine learning, I understand, is generally data-driven computer learning. That is, okay. A good way to frame this is to contrast classic computer programming with machine learning. So most of you, not all, but most of you have experience with computer programming, either in your engineering courses earlier or some of your professional work. And maybe, of course, mostly with Python, but also things with HTML, CSS, and so on. Classic computer programming is based on giving the computer, setting up a computer instruction such that whenever you give it certain data, the computer will follow certain steps and will do the same thing. So given these inputs, it will do the same thing every time. And that's classic computer programming. And that's what actually makes computers so awesome. The fact that they can consistently do what we want very quickly over and over again. They're much better people than that, and that's what ushered in the computing revolution. But in this classical model, if you give a computer some data that it has not been programmed for, it crashes because it doesn't know what to do with it. But machine learning trains the computer on certain data, knowing that in the future, you're going to give it data that it did not see before, because you don't know what data it's going to see in the future. So we're training the computer so that based on the data it has seen in the past, it kind of knows what to do when it sees new data it has not seen before. That's machine learning, and that is fundamentally different from classic computer programming. So a lot of the machine learning you've been learning and you'll continue to learn about fall under supervised learning, unsupervised learning, deep learning, natural language processing. And this is what we're covering in this course as well. But a very important aspect of machine learning, which I do not believe is included in your program, is reinforcement learning. And the difference here is that with most machine learning, you give computers a lot of data, and it trains and learns on that large amount of data so that when it receives small data or a lot of data in the future, it kind of can figure out what to do. But with reinforcement learning, you train the computer on little bits of data at a time. You give it just one little bit of data, and then the computer responds. It takes an action based on that one little bit of data. If it does what you want, then you give it a reward. But if the computer, in response to that little bit of data, does something you don't like, then you punish it. Then you give it a new piece of data. If it does what you want, you give it a reward. If it does what you don't want, you punish it. And the rewards and punishment are just points. You give it plus points for doing what you want and minus points for what you don't want. And the computer lives for that. You can think of a kid that you give it stars and it will just do whatever you want for giving it little stars. Computers are like that, okay? But this means of training is, there's some very important domains. So one most famous one, so we've heard news stories of computers that can play games better than people, whether video games or classic hard games like chess or Go that have now become better than people. But that's how they were trained with reinforcement learning. They learned the reward is taking steps towards winning the game, and the punishment is eventually losing a game. But by learning what steps it takes in order to win, it eventually learned how to play better than the best humans. And this has a lot of important applications in modeling and so on. So this is another very important aspect of AI, which is not mainly in the scope of your program. However, these parts of machine learning are very important parts, and that's why the program mainly focuses on those. Okay, so that's a little survey on AI. Then business intelligence includes a lot of things that are not AI at all. As I mentioned earlier, business intelligence is basically giving managers the tools to make intelligent, appropriate decisions from data, not just based on their experience or intuition, but based on appropriate analysis of the data. Some important aspects of BI, or business intelligence, that really do not involve data mining are, we've been talking about data, but which data? Where do you get the data from? What is good, useful data or not? This is a business intelligence problem, which is very important, and that's not AI at all. Then extracting the data, transforming it, loading it, storing it in appropriate storage formats, data warehouses, preparing dashboards and reports for the data. The reports are for human consumption, not computer consumption. These are hugely important for making effective decisions, but they are not AI, as I've described. Then one big aspect of business intelligence is data mining. So data mining is analyzing large amounts of data. And large doesn't mean like big data sizes. It might even be 1,000 lines of data. Sorry, I'm going to close the door. But when a human sees like an Excel spreadsheet with 1,000 lines, full of numbers, you don't know exactly what's going on. So being able to find patterns in that's what data mining is about. So a big part of that, data mining just directly leverages a lot of tools from machine learning. So the classic tools for supervised and unsupervised learning, deep learning, natural language processing, data mining uses these tools to find patterns in large data sets. But there are some important parts of data mining that's discovering insights from large data sets that are not AI. That includes preparing the data. So you have the data, but the data is messy. You have to find and correct errors in it. That's not AI, but that's absolutely essential. Otherwise, you're going to get garbage results. Business analytics, which I'll talk about a little bit, the different phases of analyzed data. Data visualization, how do you visualize that data? How do you display it as tables and graphs effectively? These are not AI, but they are essential to finding trends and patterns in data. Okay. So the specific focus of this course is on data mining. So the intersection between, we're taking AI techniques from machine learning, some of the most popular AI techniques, but we will spend a lot of time on some techniques that are not AI for preparing the data, analyzing it, and visualizing it. But crucially, we're also taking not just a computer science approach on creating the best models, but more importantly, a business intelligence approach of how do we make appropriate decisions based on this data. Okay. Any questions? Okay. I think I'll put this here. So there are a lot of machine learning algorithms, and this is a survey carried out by a consultant company called Rexer Analytics. Their latest version. It's amazing that, I've been following them for a number of years, and these priorities have not changed. So they surveyed thousands of data scientists asking which techniques do they use most often. This one is not most often, but just which techniques do they use sometimes. And the top, linear regression and logistic regression, then decision trees and cluster analysis. Then there's others like time series, ensemble methods, and so on. And this survey, my following it directly has influenced my choice of what topics to focus on this course. And so in this course, we're going to have it, but we're doing, as you see, where the course isn't looking primarily at specific algorithms and methods, but it's looking more at classes of problems, and that's more how it's going to be divided on. But as you will see, there's many techniques that we will spend time on. We'll look at linear regression, decision trees, cluster analysis, time series, ensemble models. We don't have the time to get into text mining or PCA, but we'll touch neural networks and so on. Today, actually, we'll get into association rules. So we're going to touch many methods, but this course is not about getting into the details of methods. It's more looking at what problems are you trying to solve and what tools are appropriate for each case. This here, a fundamental distinction in two types of machine learning, supervised and unsupervised learning. You should know this by now. Could someone tell us what is the difference between supervised and unsupervised learning? Yes.
Supervised learning is when the dataset already has a label, so you already have some kind of idea of where every data point is localized, not really localized, but like you have an idea of what is right and what is wrong. And when it's unsupervised learning, you just, for instance, clustering or k-neighbors, you're just trying to find the groups of data that aren't have intrinsic connections.
Okay, very good, very good. So I'll say the fundamental distinction is how do we conceive of truth in what we're looking for. So in supervised learning, we have a target, outcome, variable, and there is a truth. You're trying to estimate the target, and either you're right or you're wrong. Either you're close or you're far off. There is an absolute truth there. And there's two general types of supervised learning: classification, when we estimate a category, and regression, when we estimate a numeric value. So we have decision trees, linear regression, time series forecasting. These are tools used for this. With unsupervised learning, the key issue is that there is no truth. Or you can say the truth is relative. You're not looking for the right answer, you're looking for a useful answer. And something might be useful for one person and not for another. And so these are techniques such as association rules, cluster analysis, outlier detection. Now, this distinction is very fundamental, and that's why you've seen this in many courses, and I'm coming back to it again, because here this course is focused on making appropriate organizational decisions and understanding this very nature of what is a good model. When there's a truth out there, what is a good model is very different from when there is no one truth. Okay. Another important aspect of understanding business intelligence is considering the 3 stages of business analytics. And so what I'm going to present here is one of the fundamental underlying threads throughout this course. But first, we have descriptive analytics, which is about analyzing the past to see clear patterns and trends. In all stages of analytics, we analyze the past. That's because we're talking about gathering data. Any data we have is from the past. We do not have future data yet. So here with descriptive analytics, we have our data, and we're trying to just see, are there trends, clear patterns and trends there. And I have here as an icon a camera to take a snapshot of the past. Predictive analytics is about analyzing the past to predict the future, assuming that the future will continue to resemble the past. Okay, here, because we're predicting the future, I have a telescope, because we're trying to look into the future. This assumption at first might seem naive, because say that, of course, the future never resembles the past. But it's not so naive. It's saying that, yeah, everyone knows that. The future is going to be different, but not everything in the future is different. Some things continue to remain the same, and as long as things continue to remain the same, then our analysis of the past can help us to predict and anticipate the future. Of course, if things in the future change, like suddenly there's a pandemic we've never seen before, we know that our past models no longer apply. So it's more being responsible with that assumption, knowing the limits of predictive analytics. So the primary focus of predictive analytics is to predict the target outcome. So this is very much a supervised learning perspective. The input factors are incidental. Prescriptive analytics, however, is about analyzing the past for guidance on how to intervene to ensure that the future will be better than the past. I'm going to really come to this again and again throughout the course. The prescriptive analytics perspective is the goal is not to reproduce what you've seen in the past. The goal is to change the past so that the future will be better. And that's why I have here a filmmaker who doesn't just look at things as they are, but directs and creates things as they would like them to be. And in order to make the future better than the past, it's not enough to just accurately predict what will happen in the future. You need to understand the inputs that went into your prediction so that you can mess with those inputs and shape them until you break the prediction. So like if your prediction said sales are going to go up like this, and next month sales go up like this, it means you're not a very good manager, because it assumes the past, what happened in the past is still happening in the future. That's why the prediction held. If you're a good manager, you need to change things so that sales go higher than what your prediction said. So there's the irony that if you're being a good manager, then your predictions will never come true because you're always messing and interfering and getting better outcomes than what your prediction said. Okay, but I'm going to come back to this again and again throughout the course. Practically, to put these principles in practice, there's many tools available, but I specifically chose Altair AI Studio. It used to be called RapidMiner, which there's many products out there, but Gartner is a major company that reviews IT services, and this is its most recent review in 2024. Ironically, Altair used to be more down here in the niche players, but since they bought RapidMiner, they've gone up. Now they're in the leader sector. And RapidMiner is a very easy to use platform that is very capable. So that's the completeness of vision. It does a lot of things, and ability to execute. It actually it has a trajectory of improvement, and Altair has been pouring funds into it, so it's probably going to grow and develop in the years to come. But compared to a lot of these, it has a very generous educational offering. And although some of these tools might be more capable, like what Microsoft, Amazon Web Services, and Google provide, they're not as easy to use as AI Studio. And so, because I really want to focus on the business applications. If you want to get into technical detail, you know Python, you know R, you can do all the technical wizardry. But as you've probably experienced in some of your courses, sometimes we get so lost in the code that we lose sight of what is this really for. And this course focuses on what is this really for, and the code is just a tool to get us there. Okay. Any questions about some of these major terms? Okay. Okay, now let's talk about big data. It's interesting, I just read yesterday, just something I read on the web, someone talking about how big data was such a hype for many years, and that finally people are getting past the hype, they're being more realistic, know what can be done. But there's some aspects of big data that I think are not hyped. And here I'll just briefly talk on big data from a managerial perspective. You have a course on big data, don't you?
Yeah.
Okay. And I can't presume to know the contents of that course, but I assume it talks of a lot of the technical aspects of big data and how it's implemented and so on. But here, I just want to spend a few minutes talking purely on the managerial aspect. That is, what do managers need to know about big data such that they can make some decisions that are a little bit different. So the classic useful way, big data used to be talked about as the 3 V's, extended to the 5 V's, but these are the key aspects of what is big about a data. So big data is big in volume, velocity, variety, veracity, and value. So volume is the main thing we think of. Lots and lots of data. So there's like 40 zettabytes of data, increasing and so on. Okay. The main implication here is that for decades we've had database technology that is very good at managing databases, even large databases. But once, and this is mainly SQL-based technologies, but once you have huge, data sets with millions or billions of lines of data, SQL databases just break down. They just cannot handle them. And that's because they're designed to be very reliable, but they just can't handle them. So the managerial implication is just to realize that when you have huge amounts of data, then you need different database administrators who are specialized in big data. So database administrators who are very good at classic databases are not necessarily so good at big data. You need a separate kind. But one thing to note is that most big data will not render classic databases extinct. Probably less than 5% of organizations need big data databases. 95% of organizations, the classic SQL-based data sets, take care of everything they need. And even those 5%, maximum 20% of their databases are big data databases. Even the companies like Meta or Yahoo that use like big data sets, maximum 20% of their databases are big data databases. The classic ones continue to prevail. And there are some applications where big data is not suitable, such as financial management. So it's not suitable for, even if you have huge amounts of data, big data is not as reliable as classic SQL-based databases. So as managers, you have to consider the applicability based on your application domain. Then another aspect of big data is velocity. And this is the fact that there's so much new data coming in. So I talked about the fact predictive analytics, you're analyzing past data, assuming that the future will continue to resemble the past. Well, with new data coming in, with new trends, there's just a constant influx of new data. And the future changes more quickly than it used to. So one implication is that you need to build into your system processes that dynamically update your models. You might take 2 or 3 months for a major model development project, but maybe 3 to 4 months later, it's expired because big data velocity, things are going on so fast that they've changed. One implication here, I'm not trying to, I say a lot of things about what is not included in your program. Your program is very complete. It covers 80 to 90% of what AI managers need, but it's impossible to cover everything. One big area that is not covered adequately is ML ops, machine learning operations. And this is what you do after you've trained your model and you've got this good model. How do you actually put it into operation in an organization? Yep. I'm sorry. I need to turn off this alarm. I'm sorry for the interruption. Okay, sorry about that. Okay, so next semester in your computer program support course, I believe you'll have the choice to pick your own data camp courses. So I'll just throw in there. Data camp has a lot of machine learning operations courses, so that's one thing I recommend filling up your skills in, and is related to big data velocity. Then variety has to do with the fact that traditional databases are mainly tabular. They store text, so they store numbers. Store mainly numbers and maybe small textual categories. But today there's a lot more data that are unstructured text, images, audio, video, because we can store them. They've always existed, but now we have tools, we have data capacity to store them, but traditional databases don't work very well with them. So text data is especially useful for text mining related to natural language processing, can be used to process that. Now, natural language processing is very useful, not just for text, but even for audio. Well, we don't think of it that way, because very often the most useful audio is recordings of people speaking. And so we have tools that can transcribe people's speech into text, and then once it's text, then you can use NLP and text mining tools to analyze that. But then even video is that case, because video has two streams. It has a moving image stream and it has an audio stream. And the audio stream is mostly people talking, which can be converted to voice and into text, and that can be handled with NLP. So text mining, natural language processing are very useful techniques to handle not just text directly, but even audio and video. However, there are special techniques, of course, specific for images and video. So this presents challenges for traditional databases, but it keeps on getting better and better. There's special databases that handle special types such as geographical data that can be stored as image maps. The main managerial implication here is really we need to keep up because what is not quite possible this year, in a year or two, might become possible. So a big part of being an AI manager is keeping up with the advancing technologies to see what you can do for your organization. Another huge aspect of big data is veracity. And veracity is the truthfulness of the data. And that is how much of your data is accurate. So you have 1 million lines of customer data, but how many of them are accurate, how many of them are not fake? There's many errors in any data that is collected. In fact, and sometimes people make up the data. And the thing is, how can you make business decisions, effective business decisions, on data that is not accurate? You can make some really bad assumptions because they're not grounded on meaningful data. And the irony here is that the reason we have so much data is because now it's so easy to collect. But the easier the data is to collect, then the harder it is to verify that there are errors or not. The harder it is to collect, such as if you actually have someone talking to people and ask them questions, the easier it is to verify the quality. So this is a big challenge. It's probably the hardest because the other challenges are more technical, but the accuracy of data is more a social challenge, and that makes it a much harder problem to deal with. But then ultimately, the most important V in big data is value. And that is, where is the gold hidden in this mountain of data? So examples of the gold. So you have lots of data. So how can you analyze this data to improve the work experience of your employees? So for instance, there's a family of techniques called process mining, which is not just about predicting outcomes, but looking at the time path, step by step that is taken. How can you make things more efficient for your employees and so on? Then how can you analyze the data to create better products and services for your customers? How can you find not just getting more money out of them, but actually creating new things that they actually want, that they appreciate better? Then how can you analyze this data to reduce costs and eliminate sources of waste? So throughout the course, I'm going to be giving a lot of practical business examples that focus on getting the value from this data. Okay. But before going on, are there any questions?
Just a question about the framework. The premise is part of created data strategy in the company.
So which framework?
You say the veracity, the volume,
Okay.
the
The 5 V's.
yes,
Big data.
it's one. When we create a data strategy, we take all these parts to improve the data strategy in the big group, for example.
Well, the 5 V's are more a way of looking at 5 aspects in which data is big. So when you say big data, what does big data mean?
Okay.
These are 5 different ways in which data can be big. Okay. So it's not a strategic framework. It's just a way. Look at these 5 things. Don't forget any of them. Okay. Oops. Okay. So we are going to now come to an exercise, and in almost all the sessions, we're going to go through an exercise together, and there's always going to be a case, some sort of organizational or business case to demonstrate the principles, and we're going to work through it together throughout this session. Then after the class session, you'll have a graded exercise, so a homework exercise that you'll have until that night or the next day to complete. And that's why I said it should take not more than 30 minutes. However, for today's first session, because it's a format that's a little bit unfamiliar, we'll just have one exercise, and it will be a graded exercise, but we're going to do it together. So I'm going to introduce you to the graded exercises on K2, so I'll use that to introduce the tool, but we'll work through this together. So let's, to see where this is, on okay, go back to K2. So on K2, in the Lectures tab, I'm going to enable each lecture as we go on. There's Intro to BIDM, that's today's session. And the slides that I've been going through are available. They will always be available at the beginning of class. And you will need the slides for the exercises. You cannot complete the exercises without the slides. So go ahead and open up the slides and follow along. Then there is the exercise here, which is K2 quiz, Intro to BIDM exercise, market basket analysis. I'll come to that in a moment. One thing for each topic, okay, I'll come back to this later time. Okay. So you've seen this before, right? Have you seen this chart of the cross-industry standard process for data mining? Yes. Okay, so you've seen this. So this is a very standard process that I find quite useful. for dividing the main steps of a data mining project. So briefly, the first step is business understanding. Before you start jumping into data, jumping into analysis, what are your business or organizational goals? And again, even though we say business, it applies to any kind of organization. Then you get to data understanding, and that is what data do you have to try to solve the business problem. And with data understanding, we have to always realize data is a very thin shadow of reality. You have the richness of organizational reality, and you reduce it to a table of numbers and some simple categories. Okay, you try to capture sales there, but you're not getting the interaction with the customer and so on. So we always have to be aware of that. So the question is, what data do we have that tries to capture the business scenario as best as possible? And there's a lot of interaction here, because sometimes you realize the data you have does not capture important aspects of the business scenario, so you need to collect new data. But you go back and forth until the data sufficiently, or at least the best you can, captures what it is you're trying to resolve. Then we have to prepare the data. Some of it is cleaning the data, fixing problems with it. And this is going to be the entire subject of the next class session. And sometimes it's just transforming the data to get it ready for modeling. Then modeling, and this is what I think of as the fun stuff. This is when you get into your regression, decision trees, cluster analysis. So you choose the appropriate techniques and you apply them to analyze the data. Then you need to evaluate how good is the model. And to evaluate it, you have to go back to the business problem, the business understanding, to see that does this match, does this resolve the issue? And it almost never does at the first time. So very often you have to go back, and sometimes you find that there's problems with the data. You might need to collect new data, prepare it, remodel, or just go back and forth here. And you might need to go around multiple cycles until finally you reach an evaluation. They say, yes, this does match, this does resolve my business problem. And then when you're satisfied, then we go into deployment, which is you then put this model and solution into production so that it can now start resolving your problem. Okay, so this is a basic CRISP DM, cross-industry standard process for data mining. So to make this concrete, I'm going to go through all 6 steps with a very small project using AI Studio so that we can concretely see, okay, how are these fitting. And in pretty much all the class sessions, I'm going to treat not all the steps, but we'll focus maybe on the preliminary steps, and then later we'll go on to the later steps. So we'll take some steps, more or less. And that's why here I just want to go through all the steps quickly with a concrete case so that we have an idea of how everything fits together. So let's begin with business understanding of a scenario. How many of you make purchases online sometimes? Okay, most people, but not everyone. How many people on Amazon? How many people use Amazon? Yeah, the biggest online store on earth. Now, if you buy something from Amazon, or if you're on the page, so like this is an example of the page for this book, The Elements of Statistical Learning. Very often you see they'll group 3 products, including what you're looking at, and say frequently bought together. And further down, they might have a list of customers who bought this item, also bought these. You're familiar with this? So these recommendations kind of so from Amazon's perspective, they try to encourage people to buy some more things. Then how many of you are on Instagram? Use Instagram? Okay. Yeah, most people here. So on Instagram, you might be browsing through, then here you might see some advertisements. And have you ever seen an ad that, wait a minute, I was looking for something like that on another site, and here I'm getting ads that are really targeted to that kind of thing? Have you ever experienced that on Instagram?
Yes.
Okay. So Instagram advertising. Let me ask, is this kind of thing, so these are two slightly different scenarios, is it good for the company and is it good for the customers? What are your thoughts? And you can answer separately for Amazon or for Instagram. Yes?
For both, it's good because
Okay.
for the customer you have a personalized experience shopping.
Mhm.
So you have, for example, if you browse a book, you have other book to complete your knowledge. But also for the company because they give more value to the consumer, but also they increase their sales at the end.
Okay. So for the customer's perspective, it gives them more personalized suggestions of things that they might actually be interested in, so that's good for them. And for the company, it might increase their sales by showing customers more appropriate suggestions. Okay. Any counterpoint? Is it all good? Any negative side for either one? Yes?
You are being tracked on everything you are searching for and having ads. You feel like maybe being supervised every time.
Okay. So you're talking about the customer's perspective?
Yeah.
Okay. So the customer, in order to get this kind of detail, the customer is being tracked on what they're doing. Now one interesting, I kind of lumped them together, but if you had a comment?
For Instagram ads, the Instagram company relies heavily on the perspective of the advertising agency, so they have to regulate, highly regulate what's the content that can be published. So there is impact on the freedom of the users.
Okay. So one difference between these is that Amazon, I'm not saying they do, but they can do this advertising entirely based on just what their customers do on their site. So they can do this without having to track what people are doing outside their site. Whereas Instagram, to give these personalized ads, they do everything they can to track any actions or interaction on the internet. So as managers, we have to kind of consider, yes, it's positive, it gives more personalized ads, but there are these privacy problems, which means that they're not very easy answers. And I'm not going to try to answer that. But it's very important that we think about this. We're trying to create value, but we should not destroy value at the same time. Okay, so the general, specifically those examples fall more under recommendation systems applications. And have you covered that yet? Because I think there's a couple of your courses where you go in detail on recommendation systems. Have you come across that yet? Okay. Like actually creating a recommendation system?
No.
Okay. I know your program has been changed a little bit. Maybe that will come in the spring semester, but I think you'll get into the more technical detail. But this is related also to what a technique called association analysis, which identifies which kinds of things, such as products, services, websites, ads, are consumed together or are purchased together. What goes together? This is an unsupervised learning technique, which means there's not a right or wrong ad. Like this is, yeah, we gave you the right ad. It's more, is it relevant or is it irrelevant? And so that's an unsupervised learning technique in considering how good the models are. So a classic scenario, which we're going to use for our case here, is market basket analysis, literally. So we are managers at a grocery store, and we have transaction information for customers that buy things, and we'd like to know, what do people buy together? So like in this shopping cart, we see someone buying pizza, some soup, cheese, chicken, and bread. And we're saying that which things do people typically buy together at the same time? And that's the goal of this analysis. Everyone clear on our business case here? Okay. So now to analyze this, let's look at the data we have to so we finished the business understanding. We understand the business context, but let's see the data we have. So to get to the data, let's go to K2. And in like in the RapidMiner tutorial, for here, the data we have is inside the exercise. So go ahead and click into the intro to BIDM exercise, and can, let's see. Sorry, hold on a moment. I'm sorry, please hold on a moment. I just need to change something on my site. But you should have access to it, okay? So you can just give me a moment while you start exploring that. Okay, so if the first step is open the file shoppingcart.xlsx. So just click on it, and it will open up this file. Trying to position myself, see here. Okay, so what we have here is shopping cart information. The full set has data from, if you look here, so from about 3 years. But we're going to work with the shopping cart tab. And each line of data has a date, then a transaction ID, and an item there. Okay. So when we're working with Excel, and we're going to work with Excel a lot in this course, there's just a few things to do to make things a little more convenient. Okay, let me make this bigger. One that I always like to do is that, because when you scroll down, you lose the header. So I like to freeze the header column. So to do that, I select the row right below the header. Then I go to the View menu and freeze panes. And with that, now when I scroll down, the header remains. Okay, so I can look down a very large data set. Another thing that is very useful is in the Data ribbon is the filter option. So you have to click somewhere in the data set there, then click on Filter. And what that does is it creates these little triangles in the header. And when you click on that, it gives a summary of the data in that column. And so with this, I can easily see that all the data here is from January 2017, because it summarizes the dates automatically, so you can quickly see that. And transaction IDs gives you the range from 534 to 584. And the items can see maybe 20 to 30 different items in the shopping cart. So this data is arranged such that each transaction ID is one shopping cart. So someone actually went to a shopping cart and checked out. And so, for example, all these items, let's see, one that's a little smaller. So all these items in transaction ID 536, let's start. They all come from the same shopping cart. So the person bought one item, all-purpose, coffee and tea, ketchup, and sometimes they're duplicated because they might have had two items and the teller, the checkout clerk checked it out twice. But these are all the things that came in one shopping cart. And that's how this data represents a shopping cart. Now, throughout this course, we're going to be going through data analysis. So I have some conventions on my slides to help you follow along. So things that are important, there's a lot of little details I might show you that are not so essential, but things that are important, I have them on the slide. So like here, step 1, left click anywhere in the data table. Step 2, I point to the tab in Excel you need to be in, so the data tab. Step 3, filter. And with that, you have access to the filters. Okay? So if I'm showing something in class, but I go too quickly, just go to the slides. Anything essential will always be on the slides. Okay? Or you could ask the person next to you, or if that doesn't work, you can ask BIDM. But everything essential is always on the slides, so just go back to the slides and then see them. Okay, so does everyone understand the data that we have here? Okay, so this is the data that's trying to represent the organizational reality that we have. So we have our first exercise question. How many grocery items, including duplicates, are there in total for transaction ID 538 on January 3, 2017? So go ahead and in the exercise, this is question 1, go ahead and answer. Okay? So enter the answer. Now for all the exercises in class, the exercises are open book and open neighbor, meaning that you can do the exercises together, both what we do in class, but also the homework exercises. You're not only allowed to do the homework exercises together, you are strongly encouraged to do them together if possible. And I'll talk about this some more because there's a lot of technical details and it's easy to miss a little step. So I encourage you to compare answers so that if someone made a mistake, you can help correct each other, okay? So do verify your answers, but go ahead and enter the answer to this first question right now. How many grocery items, including duplicates, are there in total for transaction ID 538 on January 3, 2017? So go ahead and enter your answer there. Yes, enter your answer directly on the quiz right now in K2. Okay. Okay. Let me show you how I got the answer. There's many ways to do it. I mean, you could scroll down to transaction 538 and count the numbers of items, but it's a little bit, you can make a mistake that way. A much easier way is, since this is now a filtered spreadsheet, you go to the filter and you deselect all options and you select only item number 538. Okay. And now it filters only for 538. Now when you do that, whenever you apply a filter right away, it's hard to see, but on the bottom left corner, okay, Excel will tell you here 8 of 1005 records found. So not only do you quickly know that there are 1005 records, but it tells you there are 8 in this filter, and that's the answer to the question. Okay. So there are 8. Okay, again, this graded exercise, we're doing it together, and this is graded, okay? So you should not get anything wrong there, because we're doing it together. The remaining ones you won't, I won't do it like this, but here we're just demonstrating together. Okay. Okay, so now we understand the data that we have, but we need to, for association analysis, the data needs to be in a very specific format. So now, because I'm doing a quick presentation, I'm not going to go through all the details of how to prepare the data for association analysis, but just very quickly. In AI Studio, if you open a new process, they have a lot of templates that you can start with, and one of the templates is market basket analysis. So basically the same process that we're doing now, and it shows how to prepare the data, how to transform the data from what we have into the format that we need. Okay, but just for time's sake, we're not for time's sake, we're not going to do that now. Instead, I've prepared the data already, and I've put that in a separate sheet. So again, in the K2 exercise, open the file shopping cart prepared.xlsx. Okay. So this gives you a second sheet. And this is basically the data from what we had. It's a little bit of a subset of the data, but it's basically the data. And instead of one line being one item that is checked out, it organizes it so that one line is one transaction, so one market basket. And in the columns are the different things that are purchased. And the cells are the number of items. So for this first one, transaction ID 534, one roll of aluminum foil was purchased, one bagel was purchased, or one package of bagels was purchased, 3 packets of flour were purchased, then one of each of those, then no butter, no fruits. Okay? So it's the same data, but just transformed in a way that is necessary for the association analysis that we're going to do. Everyone okay? Understanding what this data is here? Okay. Okay, so with this transformed data, here's the next question to make sure that you understand how it's structured. How many bagels were purchased in transaction ID 566? So go ahead and enter that in question 2. How many bagels were purchased in transaction ID 566? Okay. Wait, go ahead and enter it if you feel that's the answer. No, go ahead and type it in. Okay.
Yeah, I already typed.
We'll go over the answer together. It's okay. We'll do it together, so no problem. Okay, so transaction ID 566. So here's how I find it. Here, okay, it's a good idea to enable the filtering also. A couple ways we could do this. So again, data and then filter. We could filter by transaction ID. It's hard for me to see from here. Well, if you can scroll down, you can just type in what you're looking for, 566. Oops. And there's transaction ID 566. And there you can easily see there's 3 bagels. Another way you could do it, so you could scroll down to transaction 566 and select that, and then select bagels. Okay, but it deselects the transaction ID. If you want to select something from the columns and the rows at the same time, here I have the row selected. Then you press the control key on your keyboard. I cannot show you this, I can only tell it to you. On a Mac, I believe is the command key. And then you select the other thing. And now I have transaction 566, bagels, and it's clear that there's 3. Okay? Okay, so now we have prepared the data. But we haven't finished preparing the data. We've done a major transformation. But now let's go to RapidMiner, or AI Studio, and let us now start the process. We'll do a little bit more data preparation, and then we'll do the actual association miner modeling. Whenever we do an AI Studio process in this course, I will always show you at the beginning, here is a process we are going to create. And we're going to go through it step by step and create it together. And at the end, I'll show it to you again. So if you lose track at any point, you can see, okay, this is what we're building. And that helps you to know what you're connecting to what. Okay. So the first thing is let's get the data into AI Studio. A very practical thing is for this course, you probably do this for all courses, but you should have a folder for this course because we're going to be working with lots of different data sets. And so you have a place where you save them and you'll have some results and you put them there as well. So wherever you've saved it, okay, so in AI Studio, we first want to read Excel. We're reading from an Excel file. So you go to the operators corner down here, and you just type read Excel. and then from there you find a read Excel operator. You can double click on it and it'll go on the process pane. Okay, now read Excel is one of the most important operators because it gets us the data that we want. But please, everyone, stop what you're doing and pay attention to what I'm about to say now, because this is a major source of problems. To enter the file into Excel, you see this option, Excel file, and there's this little folder, which is what you would normally think you use. But never, ever use that. Okay? Because when you read an Excel file, there's many configurations to make sure things work smoothly in AI Studio. And for that, you need the import configuration wizard. So always, always use the import configuration wizard. Never open the file directly. So when you click on the import configuration wizard, then you navigate through your computer. Okay. And yeah, wherever you are on your computer, you, okay. Okay, so you go to wherever you are on your computer, and you open the file. Now be careful, there's two files, remember. There's shopping cart and shopping cart prepared. We're working with the shopping cart prepared file here. That's what we're reading into AI Studio. And then you click next. The next field, you have the option to open data on a different sheet if it has multiple sheets, but this is the first one. By default, it recognizes all the data. But if you accidentally click on something, you just click on Select All, and it says that this is all the data that it's going to select. Okay, that's fine. Then click Next. Then on this sheet here, it recognizes the formats of the data, and sometimes you might want to change this, but most of the time you just receive the default, no problem. And then when everything looks good, you click Finish. Okay. Now those are a lot of steps, but on the slides, step 1, the read Excel operator. Step 2, use the import configuration wizard. Don't use the direct entry. Step 3, you enter or find a file that you're looking for. Step 4, next. Then the next screen, make sure it's the right sheet. Select all if necessary. Step 3, next. And then on this page, on this screen, just one thing, finish. Okay? So again, if you got lost in any step, the slides have it. We're going to use a read Excel operator again and again, so I'm not going to show it in every slide presentation. You're going to get used to it, but this is how. The first time I go through anything, I will show step by step. So if you're lost, just go back to the slides. You have the steps. Okay, well actually before this, it's a very good idea when we're building a process. Before you go on, just go ahead and connect the output port. You click and drag it to the result right away, and go ahead and run it right away. And by running it, you can verify that yes, this is the data you thought is the correct data. Okay. And in fact, as much as possible, after each step, it's a good idea to run the process just to see. It helps you understand better what is actually going on and how the process is being built. Okay. Now the next step is to set role. And the thing here is that if we want to analyze the data, you have to understand that the computer does not understand our data. It didn't go through the data understanding. We understand the data. So the computer will look at this and say that, okay, for transaction ID 5, the first row, there's 1 bagel, 3 flowers, and there are 534 transaction IDs. For this row 4, there are 537 transaction IDs, 0 aluminum foil, 1 bagel. But we know, no, those are not the number of transaction IDs, that's just an ID. But the computer doesn't know that, so we have to tell it, this is not data, this is just an ID column. So that's what we're going to do. So whenever we want to give data special meaning like that, we use the set role operator, which means set the role of certain columns of data. So here, especially when you've already connected things all the way to the end, you can just click and drag the operator, and you can plop it on top of the line. Now, if you notice, when I'm dragging it over the line becomes a little bit bold. That means it's ready to receive this. And when you plop it, it connects it. But just to be sure, you can click on the operator and drag and say, yes, it did connect it properly. So that's just a quick way to add operators. Now to set the role, you go to the edit list here. And we want to set the role, need to scroll down, of the transaction ID. It is not regular. Regular means just regular data. So here we're saying the transaction ID of the different possible roles, it's an ID. It's an identifier column, okay? Then click apply. And to make sure that worked okay, you click run again. And now you see that it colors transaction ID differently, which means now it knows it is a special column. It will not be analyzed as if it were data. And if you go to the statistics tab, it has more details. You can see that what role is it? It recognizes it's an ID column. Okay. So here, back to data. So on the slides, again, step 1. Okay, whenever you see an operator, that means find and add that operator, the operators tab. And then in the parameters, so we're back in design view. These are the results, but we're creating everything in the design view. So with set role clicked, parameters, and then step 2, click on the edit list, which opens up this window. Step 3, you enter transaction ID. Step 4, target role. Step 5, apply. Okay. Is everyone with me? Is there anyone who is lost? Okay. Because these first 2 days, I'll go I just want to make sure I'm not losing anyone, because we're going to be doing more and more advanced AI Studio things. So I just want to make sure you're following. Okay. Now, the next step for data preparation here is, so we have the data, the results pane. It has the numbers of transactions, the number of items for each transaction. But actually, association analysis doesn't track the numbers. All it tracks is, was something purchased or not? Regardless of 1 or 10, was it purchased or not together with the others? That's all it needs. And that purchase or not is true or false. So these numbers are not in the format that it can work with. We have to convert these numbers to true or false values. So 0 is false, everything else is true. And in RapidMiner terminology, a true or false value is a binomial. So we need to convert numericals, numbers, to binomials, true or false. In the next class session, I'll explain RapidMiner data types a little bit more, but that's all we're doing here. Okay, so we search in the operator's search pane for numerical to binomial. Now be very careful here because there's a lot of operators that sound very similar. Like there's numerical to binomial, numerical to polynomial. Make sure that you're picking the correct one. And so on the slides, I will always prominently write the correct name. So make sure it's the right one that you're picking. Okay. And here, the default values are fine. So we don't change anything here. And to see what it did, you click Run. And here you can see that it changed all the counts to true or false.
Wow.
Okay. Okay. Impressive, eh? Okay. Okay, so now the data is in a format where we finished preparing it for the format necessary for association analysis. So now we can move to stage 4, the actual modeling. Okay, because my purpose in today's session is just to give you an overview of all 6 steps of the data mining process. So I'm not able to really explain how association analysis works. So please just follow along. I'll just explain a few things. In the later sessions, I'll explain in more detail how some algorithms work. But for here, we're just seeing the whole process. So FP growth is one of the main algorithms for association analysis. So you can search for that, FP growth. I think if you search FP, it'll come up. Okay, let me just see something. Okay, so FP growth. Okay, now, okay, please pay careful attention here. Here's one of the conventions I use. Here you can see there's a lot of options. And as we go through things in class, sometimes you'll change some of the settings, sometimes you won't. So what I do is that I always take a picture of the essential parts and very carefully compare this with the default and change anything necessary on the default to match what is here. So like here, these first options are fine, but the minimum support needs to be changed from the default of 0.95 to 0.05. Okay? And then min items per item set 1, max items 3. So that needs to be changed here. Now for all the other things that I did not show, do not touch them. Okay, so that's my convention. Anything that doesn't matter, that you're not going to change, I won't necessarily show it. But everything that is changed, I will always show it. So you compare what is on the slides with the default, and you make sure that it matches exactly. If it does not match exactly, you will not get the same result that that everyone else is going to get. Okay? So if your result is different from what we're getting, come back to the slides, look at the operators, and make sure that you didn't make a little typo somewhere. Make sure it matches exactly. Okay? I'll explain, when we show the results, I'll explain a little bit what the results that matter mean. Okay. Then next, we have the create association rules operator. Yeah, and you might need to look at the big, the final picture to see exactly how to connect what to what. But in the create association rules operator, again, you need to be careful that you just need to change mainly the min confidence to 0.5. Okay. 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 So just a quick note on RapidMiner or AI Studio operator settings. So how do you know the correct settings for an operation that we're going to do? Okay, for this class, just follow the instructions. Because actually, okay, so that's for this class. But in real life, how do professionals know the settings? Let's say there are two fundamental ways to learn computer programming. And believe it or not, what we're doing is actually a type of computer programming. It's a visual type of computer programming. There's two fundamental ways. One is you learn the rules of the language, and then you follow the rules to kind of start constructing your programs, little by little. The other way is you take examples that people have given that do useful tasks, and then you put in your own data and you adapt the settings for your data. RapidMiner or AI Studio mainly follows the way of learning by example. And actually that is how I learned AI Studio. I read 2 books in depth with lots of examples. I did all the exercises, following the examples, and then I started modifying my own data, and that's how I've learned it. So this is a very normal way of learning. But then which are the right settings? As we'll see in subsequent courses, the right settings for machine learning, there are no perfect right settings for every data set. Each data set has its own best settings, and this is what hyperparameter optimization is best for, is needed for, and we're going to see that in detail in subsequent sessions. All this for, don't worry for now that you don't understand the settings. The understanding will come little by little as the course goes on, and you'll see how to find some of the appropriate settings. Okay. This is a good time to save the process, because like any computer program, if you don't save your work, your computer crashes, you lose it. AI Studio is actually good at recovering partial draft work, but don't take its goodness for granted.
Is there any specific file name?
I'm sorry?
Any specific file name?
No, you can name it whatever you want. So here is a save icon. So just click on save. Then you can create a repository. I think I have one already. And you can call it whatever you want. Here, okay, I'll call it Association Analysis A. Okay. And that way, if anything happens, it's saved. Now, this actually saves the file within AI Studio. It does not save it in a way that you can share it outside. We'll come to that shortly on how to export the process. But saving it just means that you won't lose your work if something happens to your computer. Okay, so now make sure that all the operators are connected with the path given. Very importantly, make sure that the output ports on the far right are connected as shown. Because if the output ports are not connected as shown, you will not get the same result. So compare your picture. Actually, I forgot to connect this. The shape doesn't matter. It's just that everything is connected as necessary. make sure that the ports are connected to the right ones. And if everything looks good, then you can run the process. Okay. And that has completed the modeling. Now we evaluate. See, are our results, are our results any good? Are they useful? Okay. Another convention. When looking at the results, for each output, each thing that we put on the results end here, there will be a tab, one for each one. And when we're discussing results in class, so which tab are we on? I will always show it. It will always be shown in the screenshots. So just make sure we're on the right tab. So now we're discussing the tab that says association rules, create association rules. And very often when you click run, it's not the one I'm going to be analyzing. So this is not the one that is on the slides. The one on the slides is this one. You see? Association rules, create association rules. So to see what we have on the slides, you have to make sure you're on the right tab. Okay? Then, sometimes I have a slightly customized view. So here I have an instruction. Click the confidence column twice. Again, if you don't do this, you will not have exactly the same thing as what we have on the screen. So you go to confidence column, you click it once, and when you click it, it sorts by that column, but this sorts ascending. Click it twice, now it sorts descending. And now, what you have in AI Studio should exactly match what you have on the screen. If it does not match exactly, it means there's one or more steps somewhere that you did not follow. Before going on, is there anyone having trouble? Is there anyone who does not have exactly the same results? Just raise your hand. Okay, let me help. Does anyone else need help? Okay. So again, without the slides, it's easy to get lost somewhere. Okay, so let's discuss. Let me explain what the association rules do a little bit. The basic idea, again, is what did people buy together? People in the same shopping cart, in one shopping cart, what do they tend to buy together? Association rules are based on premises and conclusions. So this first premise says that whenever people bought aluminum foil and flour, they also bought bagels. That is the first rule that was discovered in the data set. So let's try to verify this, okay? So let's go back to our data set. And the rule is, again, the premise is whenever people bought aluminum foil and flour, they also bought bagels. So we can filter aluminum foil. So let's remove the zeros, because 0 means these people do not buy any aluminum foil. And then let's say when they bought aluminum foil and they bought flour. So let's remove people who did not buy flour. So these are now all people who bought aluminum foil and they bought flour. And we find that, sure enough, every time they bought aluminum foil and flour, they also bought bagels. So since that happened every time, the confidence is 1.0, or 100%. So 100% confidence, that is a rule that always happens.
So what is support?
Support is how much of the data supports this rule. So let me pull out a calculator so that you understand that a little bit better. The filter tells us that this is 5 of 51 records. So there are 5 cases when people bought aluminum foil and they bought flour. 5 cases out of 51 records. 5 out of 51, 0.098. And that's what the support is. Okay? The support is saying that this rule is supported by 0.098% of the data, and it holds 100% of the time. Let's look at the next rule. Okay, so I clear the filter to start again. The next rule is that whenever people bought yogurt and flour, they also bought butter. So let's see, whenever people bought yogurt and they bought flour, bought yogurt and they bought flour, they also bought butter. Now in this case, we find they bought butter 5 out of 6 times, but 1 time they did not buy butter. So 5 out of 6, 5 out of 6 is 0.833. That's why the confidence for that rule is not 100%. The confidence for that rule is only 0.833. Okay? However, when the rule does hold, the rule holds for 5 times out of 51 in the data set, which we've seen is 0.098. So the support and the confidence give us, so these are the rules that were discovered, but most of the rules are not 100%. The support and confidence tells us how much data supports the rule and how often is the rule held in the data set. Okay? Is that kind of clear? And that's what the main result of association analysis. Okay, so based on this, trying to understand this, we go back to the graded exercise and go ahead and answer. A lot of the exercises you're going to have, there might be some preliminary questions, but a lot of the questions will depend on correctly building the model. Okay? So now, the next questions are, what is a premise of rule number 100? What is the conclusion of rule number 100? And what is the highest value of support for any of the rules in the results? Okay. And as you can tell, to get the correct answers, you must have correctly created a model. And that's why it's very important to check with the people next to you, make sure you're getting the same model, okay? So that you have confidence in your answers. So go ahead and answer those right away. Just give you a minute to answer these 3 questions. Okay, so let's do this. What is the premise of rule number 100? Now, when there's lots of rules like this, remember we sorted this descending by confidence, but we're looking for rule 100, so it's more convenient. Just click by the number column, and then now it sorts by the rule numbers, and then it's easier to scroll down and find rule 100. And for rule 100 is bagels and flour. Now, this is a text-based answer, and it's very easy. And the K2 quiz will automatically grade your answers. It's very easy to make a typographical error. And if you make a typographical error, it's going to be wrong. So for things like this, I recommend that you copy the answer from AI Studio into K2. Unfortunately, it's not very obvious, because if you right-click, you don't see anything about copying. So it's kind of hidden, but if you press Control-C or Command-C on a Mac, it will actually copy it into the clipboard. So here I'm pressing Control-C on my computer. And when I go to the premise, here I can paste or press Control-V, and it pastes exactly the correct answer. Yes?
I already submitted the assignment, and I didn't write it.
I'm sorry?
I didn't write it the right way for the question tree.
Okay, I'm going to talk about that. Okay. So Control-C for the conclusion, and then paste. Then what is the highest value of support for any of the rules in the results? Now to get this, we're asked for support. The easiest way, again, you sort. So you sort by any column just by clicking on that column. And this clicks ascending, you just click again, and now it sorts so that the highest value is now on top. So it's easy to see the highest value. You could do 0.216, but again, I can just do Control-C, copy, and then paste it. Now here, when I paste it, is 0.21568. So K2 rounds off. So this is perfectly fine. If you enter 0.216, 0.21568, and so on, it will give you full credit for either one. Okay, so don't worry for round-off errors. Now that said, a couple of important comments. Sometimes you'll make a typographical error, and it will mark you wrong. Okay, I'm not grading you for typographical errors, so if that happens, just email me, and I will set it so that it will accept it. If I verify it's just a typographical error, I'll adjust it so that it will recognize that, and I'll give you full credit for it. Okay, so that's what typographical errors. But you have to tell me. Okay, you have to notify me. It's already has some flexibility, but you can just email me and I can adjust that. Okay. Okay. Now we finish evaluating and we like our model, so now we want to deploy it, which means to share it. The first thing is often we want to share the model or the model files. And so to actually, we've saved the model so that we don't lose our data, but to be able to share it, you have to export it out of AI Studio. And to export, you go to the File menu to Export Process. And for this course, exporting is essential because although I strongly encourage that you work on the assignments together, each of you, okay, please pay attention to this. This is very important. each person must do the work themselves. You can do it together, side by side, but each person has to actually do it on their own computer, and you have to submit your own file. In the export process, RapidMiner, the file actually stores some unique information about your computer, and so I can tell if someone copied someone else's assignment. You actually have to do it on your computer so that you have a unique submission. And so you're going to export it and upload the export process every time into K2. So to export it, you go to the File menu, Export Process, and you save it. A convenient tool in the bookmark, there's the last directory, can take you back to the last place you were, so you don't have to navigate every time. And I give instructions on how to name the file. Okay? So every time I specify how to name it, it's usually I give a name here, association rules, your first name and your last name. Okay, so replace your first name, last name with your own name. So in my case, association rules, Chitu Okoli, and then you save that. Okay. Then in K2, you have to then click. You can drag and drop here, or you click here. Oh, just one alert. For some reason, so a RapidMiner or AI Studio file has a RMP extension. For some reason, Macs think it's a music file. It's an XML file, but Macs thinks it's a music file because it's an old format RMP. It's not a music file. If you want to verify it, that it worked okay, then you just go back to AI Studio and import process, and you just open up the file, and if you can see it okay, then it's good. Okay. But in K2, you navigate, you choose wherever the file was. Okay, have fun where I save that file. Okay, so when you open it, you upload the file, and then it will display here in K2. Then you can submit and finish attempt. Okay, before you submit all and finish, because after you submit, to finish submitting, you click submit all and finish, and it asks, are you really sure? Okay, but hold on a moment. Because you click submit all and finish, and you confirm. A triple confirmation. There's no going back. Okay? Once you've done the final submission, you can't come back and say, sorry, I made a mistake, and I'm sorry. The submission is final. However, you don't have to do this. If you just leave it, even if you leave it just like this, it automatically saves your answers. Okay? Because even when you finish attempt, you can see that it says that the answers have been saved. So it saves your drafts, and if you forget to finally submit, once the deadline hits, it automatically submits for you. And I will get it full. So if you want to be safe, you don't have to submit. If you think maybe you go back and change something, you're not sure about something, don't worry about forgetting. As long as you've reached this point, it will automatically submit it for you. Okay? Is everyone clear on that? Okay. Okay. Then to save your results beyond the process, there's different, depending on the process you're doing. Unfortunately, I would have liked to be able to like copy and paste these results maybe into a table. And you can press Control A, actually, and then Control C. And then you go into Excel and Control V or paste. But for some reason, when you do that, it doesn't save the headers. It just saves the data in the table. So it's very imperfect. But in subsequent sessions, you'll see how to directly save a file of your results into a RapidMiner from the next section. So you can, into Excel. So you can export your results directly into Excel. We'll see how to do that in the next section. Or you can take a screenshot depending on what you're doing. Okay. Okay, so that brings us to the conclusion of this session. So we covered quite a lot, even though it's an introductory session. We saw that business intelligence is a comprehensive set of tools that help us to make intelligent decisions from data. We learned about big data. Although it is an important technical topic, there's a lot of managerial implications about the challenges that huge data sets with very large volume, velocity, variety present. Then we saw data mining. It's a process with advanced statistical techniques to analyze and obtain insights. And ultimately, this course takes a data mining approach to teaching business intelligence. So your next session is tomorrow, I believe. Okay. So you have so this afternoon, I think you have free. You don't have any courses this afternoon, do you? So please get started with your perusal readings. There's a lot of readings. So use the time to start with perusal. And usually you'll have an AI Studio assignment after each session. But this first session, we did it together. So that's the assignment. You don't have another one. So just start preparing for your Friday perusal readings, and also you have data camp assignment. Okay. Then other than that, I'll see you tomorrow. Okay.